You must know there's no one here anymore except me, and in about an hour I'll be leaving too. I wish I could offer you tea in one of the sitting rooms, but as you can see, they're covered over with linen dust covers. You know, it's 6 months since Mr. Clemens died. I know, it's hard to believe. I still hear his voice a dozen times a day. To me, he's still here. First, there was the man. Then there was the family. Then there was Katie. Katie Leary, trusted servant and faithful friend. She spent the best years of her life in service to the Clemens family, headed by Samuel Clemens, otherwise known to the world as Mark Twain. Share with her now as she reminisces about her days with the family and the man in You Caught Me Dancing by Bernard Sabbath. Well, they'll be coming tomorrow to turn off the gas and the electric, and I won't be here to supervise the way I've done through all my years with the family. How many years? Do you really want to know? 30. 30 years to the day. October 19th, 1880. And now I'm packing up. Leaving. Soon as I figure out where to. That's right, I don't even know where I'm going. Ain't that silly? It was never up to me to decide. I just handed them the steamship tickets with a nod. But about a year ago, Mr. Clemens says to me, Katie, let's talk about the future. The future? Your future. Mine's clear enough. Halley's Comet is going to sail through that sky, and since I was placed on this earth last time I went through, I'll be leaving this time. I don't know yet whether I'll be going up or down. I got plenty of friends in both places. And we did talk about the future. When I first come to the red brick mansion of Hartford, I didn't know who Mark Twain was. He wrote in the billiard room on the third floor and no one was allowed in. But I said, why not let me dust up there? So one day I'm dusting and I hear his footprints on the stairs. When he opens the door, he begins to bellow like he's found a burglar. Katie Leary, what the blasted burning hell are you doing in here? Dustin, sir, I didn't move a thing. You were about to. No, sir, I've been dusting here for 3 weeks and not moved so much as a lead pencil. 3 weeks, huh? Well, go ahead and dust, but never straighten it. Never. And don't go throwing out papers you think are just trash. Understand? I understand perfectly, I said. I hoped that would be the end of it. It wasn't. About once a week, he'd come raging into me sewing room. I can't find my damn papers. You tossed him out. Then, about an hour later, he'd come stand in the doorway. I found them damn papers. They were in my bedside table. Can you forgive my temper? Though, I must admit, his fireworks were rarely at me. Mostly, they were about how the country has been run into the ground. The president's mind was clean gone. He should get it out and dance on it. The first lady was a sanctimonious iceberg waiting for a vacancy in the Trinity. He'd shake his fist in the air and call the president's cabinet a zoo of damn incompetent ninnies and half-wit basta. Imagine being paid wages to listen to that. Still, it was kind of beautiful, though, like listening to a concert in a thunderstorm. He looked elegant, ranting and shouting and waving his arms. Not that swearing always settled things or was always fun for him. Mr. Clemens struck the world as happy and funny mostly, but even before the sad times come, he had his own streak of private melancholy. he might out of the blue go over, place his hands on the piano keys, and sing. Everything would stop. I heard him sing so purely from the heart, like he was recalling a world gone forever. The family stayed clear of sadness as much as they could. They pranked and joked and lived stylish for the joy of it. And the world watched them. Soon the family returned to live in New York. It was the start of the 20th century. Mr. Clemens says, "I plan to write the strangest, most truthful story ever written." Mrs. looked at him with a patient smile and said, "For heaven's sakes, dear, what do you mean?" "The unvarnished story of my life." She didn't answer, but just looked at him and at all of us like she was miles away, understanding us better than we did ourselves. I hoped more than anything that the 20th century would bring her peace of mind. Doctors said we must move to Italy for the climate. So when Mr. heard of a beautiful villa, he rented it, and we went over. At first she improved, then she didn't. So the doctors prescribed her to stay in bed. No visitors, including Mr. He was allowed in just 5 minutes before she went to bed. Doctor said too many feelings passed back and forth between the two of them and wore her out. Through it all, Mrs. Clemens laid there patient and I suppose lonely, waited for the 5 minutes. It was strange, both of them there, both alone, waited. One spring night, Mrs. Clemens said, "Katie, I'm gonna die." One day, when I got back from Mass, nurse said they'd have to give her oxygen. When Mrs. seen me, she brightened. I held her, felt her strength tremble, then go. Before the funeral, Mr. Clemens and me had a moment alone. He moved away from the coffin and said, "Katie, I won't take part in another funeral. I can't." I noticed then that he got old, and I'd always thought there was no old age in him. 4 days later, I come back late, let myself into the house. I guessed everyone was asleep. So quiet. But no, it wasn't. I heard something. Music. Bright, shiny music. I opened the library door and looked in. I never told this to no one. There was Mr. Clemens in a white suit and orange necktie, humming along with the racy tune, swaying to the beat, backing and forthing and kicking a leg in the air. He'd seen me and stopped. "You caught me dancing." There were tears in his eyes. I asked a lot of questions he couldn't answer. So finally this evening I dressed up, turned on that music, and liked it. Since God didn't see fit to reply, I had to get some answers to who I am and what life means. I scribbled till I got it down. "Katie, you've made fun of my pulver about Halley's Comet, but it's heading this way and one day it'll claim me." "No, Mr. Clemens, you can't leave me." "Be still, Katie Leary. It's gonna happen." And you know, it did. I was there. He was peaceful, eyes twinkling. I think back to what he said that night when he was dancing. "When I go, Katie Leary, I hope I can leave you my temper. Do as you like thing. And since you're good with a needle, if you ever feel like sewing yourself a white suit, do it." "I never would, but that idea of doing what you like." Oh, look at the time. I'm turning into the kind of person that can reminisce or wait a whole afternoon. I'm glad we did. I got to put on my best hat so I can look nice. Gonna buy a seat in the parlor car. Mr. Clemens would want me to. Goodbye now.